And welcome back to another edition of the Blue Review. It is Parker Bell alongside Marcus Grant. Today we are without Greg Bergman. I don't know where he is and what's going on, but we hope all is well, and I'm sure it is. I think he's probably just busy in meetings as usual. He is the MAO, manager of audio and all that good stuff. So it's going to be me and you, Marcus.
Wait,
Today.
really?
How we
That
doing?
is that his title? He's the Mao there.
He is the MAO. He was corporate Greg, and then he was MAO, and now he's on air. So he's everything.
All right, good for him, I guess.
That's right. How are we feeling today? You know, the Dodgers didn't get the sweep yesterday in the City of Lakes. Bobby looked better than he did against the Cubs, at least. Vesia, we can kind of get into that. There's some fun things we can do with that. I saw some reactions from Greg. But how are we feeling? How are we feeling in general?
I mean, it was disappointing. It was a disappointing ending to the series. I'm sure we could talk about Bobby a little bit, but we all said coming into this that winning the series was important, and they knocked that out in the first two games. They went out, they looked great the first two games. Glass now was amazing. And so they got that done. So yes, it would have been nice to get the sweep, especially to come back home with the Padres coming into town. So in that respect, it was a little bit disappointing, but overall, I thought there were some good takeaways. Look, Bobby's start was not the best, as you mentioned. It was better than what we saw from him against the Cubs his last time around. It's just early, man. Like at some point, I think he just needs to get off to a quick start, right? And that is, get through the first two innings, I think, unscathed and look like he has some command. And I think we feel better about it. But the last two starts, the first and second innings have generally been problematic for him. So I'm not ready to panic on him yet, but it is something I think we kind of need to monitor next time his turn comes through the rotation. What does it look like for Bobby Miller? What kind of command does he have, especially with things that aren't the fastball? The fastball he still seems to be spotting. I mean, when he needed it yesterday at times, he was able to go back and touch 98, 99 and get those strikeouts. But, I think they need him to start going, 6 innings. They can get him through 7. That'd be amazing. But they can get him through 6 innings consistently. I think that would be a plus. So that's something that I think I'm just keeping an eye on the next time.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the command is huge. And he honestly didn't throw his fastball a lot, which was surprising. And like you said, because it actually was the only one that was really finding its spots. But I mean, yeah, it's just too early. It's too early to say. I know 8 base runners in 4 innings with 2 earned runs isn't all that bad, but it's just the fact that he was in so many deep counts, trying to work his way out of jams. I mean, granted, he did at least have the right mindset of, sure, I'm letting guys get on base, but I trust my defense and I can get out of the jams, and 2 earned runs isn't all that bad. But yeah, we need to start seeing some deep innings from this guy because we don't want to throw off. If the Dodgers are going with the bullpen games and the 6-man rotation, we cannot be throwing off those bullpens.
Right.
Seeing guys like Vesia in the 5th when it's a 2-2 game and having to deal with that is a whole thing that the Dodgers do not want to get into. But like you said, they won the series, and that is all that mattered. Really, they're still on pace for a great season, and the offense looks just fine. We can talk all about Betts, Ohtani, and Freeman as we get into this episode. But did you kind of want to dive into? There's some, I guess, relatively breaking news that broke. Was it last night or was it this morning? I mean,
last night it hit yesterday, kind of afternoon. The news about Shohei Ohtani, more specifically about Ippei Mizuhara, who is planning to plead guilty to some of the charges, certainly for theft, and some of the other charges that have been leveled against him by the FBI. Some of the big things I think that came out of it, at least for me reading the stories, that he may have stolen more than the $4.5 million that we all had read about before. That there's possibly even more money than that. So, at least as of now, we don't know how big that number is going to be. We'll see if we ever find that out, or if that's a thing that sort of remains under lock and key. The other part of it is, and I think this answers the big question of how somebody so close to Shohei Ohtani could have stolen that much money. The suspicion, the allegations that he was able to get into Shohei's bank accounts and change a lot of the settings uh, so that Shohei was not getting notified about any sort of wire transfers, any sort of changes in his account, that he wasn't aware of how much money was coming in and out of his bank account. And I know like a lot of people were like, well, how do you have somebody who's your closest friend and
Right.
confidant, and how do you let that person steal so much money? And I think that's sort of how. And I was watching some of the guys like Anthony Witrado, who does a great job covering baseball and the Dodgers specifically. Make a good point that, let's say the roles were reversed, right? Let's say that we were, one of us was in Japan, playing a sport or doing something that involved a lot of money, and we had somebody close to us who was sort of managing everything. Uh, it seems very possibly very easy that person
Mm-hmm.
can come and sort of manipulate things without our full knowledge of them. So I think that is sort of the thing. I think if there's a silver lining here for the Dodgers, it is that for the Dodgers and for Shohei, it seems like the heat is basically off. That the
Yeah.
investigation, at least the Shohei portion of the investigation, is sort of coming to a close. It seems as though the FBI has not found any uh, instances of wrongdoing on Shohei's part. It seems that, according to the investigation so far, that he truly is a victim of theft and fraud here in this situation. And so now the spotlight turns to Ippei specifically, to I think the larger investigation over an illegal gambling ring. But it seems like this is going to sort of come to an end, which is great for Shohei. It's great for the Dodgers. It's great for Major League Baseball that you don't have
Yeah.
this cloud hanging over your biggest star for the entire season. I think that would have been the worst possible thing for baseball, that everywhere Shohei goes, everywhere the Dodgers go, that this is a story that continues to linger. That being said, I will say that I don't think it necessarily vanishes right away. I think he's still going to hear it from fans when he
Mm-hmm.
goes other places. I think there's always going to be people who don't fully believe the story, but I think for the majority of us, um, I think this is a thing that we can kind of put to rest now. We can get to talking about baseball for the remainder of the summer.
Yeah, I think for those who aren't really, believing the situation, and of course, it's fair to be skeptic and it's fair to want to see all the details come out. But just hearing the fact that the feds are saying, Otani really had no involvement with the betting, I think that's huge. And I mean, it's not totally far-fetched. You could just look at your own situations in life, like let's say those that you are extremely close to. Think about it. I mean, I knew for, let's say, my last girlfriend, we were together for 4 or 5 years. We knew each other's passcodes. Like we had enough
Mm-hmm.
trust in each other. If you are going to do like bad things like Ibe was doing, it's really not that hard to just manipulate some things and get away
Yeah.
with all that. So I mean, it may seem like it's super hard because of the numbers involved and the total amount of money, but realistically, that can happen, and it probably happens to more people than we think. Just not
Yeah.
on that scale.
Right. Well, but I think even on that scale, I mean, one, you hear stories all the time of athletes going broke
True.
because somebody managed their money poorly. And I think when you have reached that level in whatever your field is, right? If you're an athlete, if you're an entertainer, or whatever, um, I think when you're making that kind of money, you aren't paying attention to every single look. For us normies, us
Yeah.
civilians, we are watching our money because we don't have nearly as much of it. When you are making as much as somebody like Shohei Ohtani or whatever, I think you sort of delegate that to other people, which does take a lot of trust. I immediately think of the old notorious BIG line: "Have lawyers watching lawyers, so I don't go broke." So I
Mm,
think that's, I know the immediate thought is, how could that happen to you? And I think, this is one of those things where us civilians in Gen Pop don't sort of understand how it works at a higher elite level because we've never been there before.
yeah. No, we haven't, and I mean, I know we'll never be. That's just
Right,
that's just the
right.
truth. But hey, I just want to say real quick, Marcus, thank you to everyone in the chat. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and send them our way to myself or Marcus. I know everyone's like, "Where's Greg? What's going on? Where's Greg?" Because they all want to know how he felt about Vesia. Why don't we pivot real quick here, just to kind of give the people what they want? Greg did have a reaction to Vesia actually, and it happened live on air during the Travis and Sliwa show. So Marcus, if you've had a chance, I think you've seen this, but I'll give everyone a chance to witness Greg's initial reaction to Vesia allowing the home run yesterday morning. So here, without further ado, I will play this clip.
Aisle.
Your boy's in the pitch.
Oh, Jesus, here comes a home run.
Your boy's in.
Within the first 5 pitches, he is going to give up a home run.
Alex Vesia in for the Dodgers.
Wait, Vesia is incredibly consistent.
Of giving up
Oh my gosh!
Gone.
Are you kidding me?
Gone.
Are you kidding me?
Gone.
Yeah. Let up a home run.
Gone. Why does he look distraught? I would think he'd be used to it by now.
God.
I was going to say
Maybe that's what
they.
they brought him in for, so that they can come back and they can work on coming back during games.
I was going to say first pitch, but I was like, no, I'll make it 5 and give myself some room.
Wow.
First pitch, he's a villain. He's a villain to me, Travis.
Well, do you know what he is, too?
A villain.
Do you...
Oh, man.
I love Greg celebrating it, like celebrating the prediction coming true as though, I mean, it was like the Dodgers had won the World Series. You know,
Right.
I mean, he just celebrated that like, I mean, it's hilarious, absolutely hilarious.
And it brought I think it was Travis who brought it up later in the show during the Travis and Sue show. He was like, at what point, when you have a situation like this, when you have a so-called villain on your team, at what point is it okay to root almost for their downfall? I hate to say that. I don't want to root for anyone's downfall, but not necessarily their downfall as a person. But let's just say, oh, he allowed a home run. Let's go, because now we might not see him as much. At what point is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we have reached that point with Vesia. It's early, right? It's early in the season. So, you know, and I guess maybe this is the time, right? This is the time for him to either figure it out, to sink or swim sort of thing. And then, you know, at some point, it's going to force Dave Roberts' hand, which is it's sort of interesting. I mentioned yesterday, we were talking about this, that they were using him in kind of lower leverage situations. Yesterday, they brought him in a tie ball game. You know, I texted you guys that like I had the game on, but I didn't have the sound on. So I see him on the mound warming up at the start of the inning. I walk away to go do something. I come back. I mean, I wasn't gone very long, obviously. I walk away, I come back, and it's 3-2. And I'm like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, early in the season, they're definitely going to let Vesia sort of work out some of his issues. But there is going to come a time where you are going to have to sort of figure some things out, because, you know, this can't linger deep into the season. This certainly cannot be a thing that happens in October. I mean, I would say that right now here on April 11th, Alex Vesia does not look like a candidate to be on the October roster unless he figure some things out.
So where do they go from here then? Like we said, it's early, and I know everyone's kind of saying that, but with him being the only lefty outside of Yarbrough, I mean, where do they go? Is this something that they're going to have to look to other teams? Are they going to have to maybe make some moves, get rid of some prospects for some lefty, you know, middle relief guys? What do you see this how do you see this playing out?
Yeah, I mean, I think long term, yes, if this continues, they may have to, and I don't know if there's somebody that's down in AAA that they think is ready for what potentially could be some really big innings in October. I don't know if that's possible, or if it's something that they go out and they try to solve when you get closer to the trade deadline. I mean, I think Greg made the point very accurately yesterday. You can never have enough pitching. So I think that's a thing, regardless of how things are shaking out, that I think, you know, Friedman and the front office are going to really look heavily at is how do we bring in some more arms? I mean, here we are. We're keeping a close eye on Bobby Miller. We're trying to figure out, are they going to go with a 6-man rotation? What do they do with Alex Vesia in the middle to late innings? I mean, these are all things that we're already talking about, you know, not even 2 weeks into the season. So you best believe that the folks in the Dodger front office are also paying close attention to that and already sort of, you know, taking notes and trying to figure out what the next potential moves are. So, you know, I think because of what this team's expectations are, you'll see some wheeling and dealing. You'll see some maneuvering. And so it may be that they try to find some middle relief help from somewhere outside the organization. I mean, goodness knows they have I know people hate giving up prospects, but
Yeah.
the reason you have a deep farm system is to be able to do that, to move prospects, especially when you are a club that is so close to the promised land. Like it's not, you're not the A's. Maybe the A's are a bad example because they're going to give their prospects away. But you're not a team that, like, you know, you're building, and so you need to sort of keep some of those prospects. The Dodgers aren't there. They have enough guys, so you take some of those prospects and use them as currency to build up what you need on your major league roster.
Yeah. Speaking, and I completely agree. I kind of wanted to, speaking of lefties, I think there was something we didn't get to the other day that I thought was really cool. And being that you covered baseball for a long time before, the Dodgers I saw held a toast post game for the big lefty James Paxton, who reached 10 years of service. I mean, just how big is that, and how important is that to guys like that? I don't know if maybe you know a little more about that and can shine some light on that.
I mean, I don't know if I have any specifics on it, but I think it's very cool, right? And I think it sort of speaks to, I think a couple of things. I mean, one, the fact that this is a pitching staff, especially we talk about the bullpen. It is a lot of older guys on this pitching staff. And then Paxton specifically, a guy who, who knows how many more years he has left in him, or if this is the last hurrah for him. And so I think it just is sort of a nice way to kind of honor a guy who, has had not a stellar career. James Paxton's not going in the Hall of Fame at any point, but a guy who's had a nice career, and the fact that he's able to make it to 10 major league seasons, I think is notable. And so I thought it was just a cool gesture to sort of celebrate one of their guys. And I think it's one of those things that sort of bonds this team a little bit more and brings all these guys together. And so I don't know if there's any really symbolic thing to it other than it was just a really cool thing. So I was kind of happy to see that.
Yeah, no, it was cool. I know that, he'll get the pension that you get when you reach the 10-year service, and you get that celebration sort of from the guys. And we were talking about it earlier in the episode. There was a lot to the start of this season. There was just a lot. There was drama. There was
an international trip. They went halfway around the world,
Exactly. Everything was just going on and around this Dodgers team, and the fact that they're 10-5. They were the first team to 10 wins in the NL. I know they split the road series, but they're generally winning series, and the big four are going off. It's like we said, that cloud is beginning to get lifted, and I think the Dodgers are going to reach this era in their season where it's like, okay, sunshine and rainbows, and we're going to be just winning games, winning series. And speaking of that, there's a streak, and I don't know, like, compared to other teams, if this is really like a record or anything or what is going on, but there's been a streak between the big three, we can call it, Betts, Ohtani, and Freeman, where throughout the first 15 games, at least one of them has recorded a hit.
Okay.
And I think Roberts was saying, I don't see this ending for months because of how many at-bats we have. There's like 15 at-bats a game between the three. There's no way that there's going to at least not be one hit.
It is hard to imagine a scenario where all three of those guys put up an offer in the same day. It's just really hard to see. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, if it does happen, the Dodgers probably lost that day. I mean, look, it's possible they could go 0-4 in the bottom of the lineup. Teoscar and Will Smith and Muncy and Outman, the rest of those guys pick up the slack. But they really are the engine that makes it go. And you're talking about three former MVPs at the top of your lineup. I just don't see a situation where they all go 0-for in the same day very often. I mean, look, we talked about can all three of them hit 300 this year? And just that alone suggests that they're not going to have a lot of combined 0-for 12, 0-for 15 sort of days this season.
Yeah, I mean, Freddie is voicing his frustrations with his swing since the spring, and he's still hitting 333,
right?
And producing. And of course, Shohei is just on an absolute tear. So, like we're seeing, that cloud's been lifted, and I think while more of this news comes out, it'll only mean more good news for the Dodgers. I see the chat kind of wondering what's going to happen in this Padres series. So, Marcus, I mean, it's Yoshi. He's on the mound tomorrow. Yamamoto versus, I think, Michael King. Have we kind of done any research on the Padres this year, the hated ones? How we feeling about this series just in general? How do you think things are going to go?
I mean, I think it's a big series in the sense of, these teams are going to see each other a lot the rest of the season. I mean, they split in South Korea at the beginning of the year. I don't know how much we can take away from that opening series because it just was so out of the ordinary. I mean, the first game, the Padres didn't really hit. The second game, they lit it up. So I'm not really sure what to take away from them. I think this is a good team that last year was disappointing. One of the things I took away from last year's Padres team is they were really, really bad in 1-run games, which was sort of weird to think for a team that had decent pitching, had good offense, that they couldn't survive in 1-run games. That also feels like a thing that's not sticky from year to year, that you can sort of be bad in those close games one year and just sort of turn it around the very next year. So I know they're not off to the greatest start. What are they, like 7-8 or something like that right now?
Yeah. They're not the Giants, but
they're not the Giants. No, they are. Let me look and make sure I'm right. Yeah, 7-8 right now. They will get better. I think they are going to sort of be a thorn in the Dodgers' side all year long. I think LA ends up winning the NL West again. But I think the Padres are going to be a thorn in the side because this is still a really talented baseball team, especially when everybody's healthy.
Yeah, their pitching has been pretty good to start, and Dylan Cease I think he had like an 8K game the other day, if not yesterday. So it's might be a little worrisome to hear that, they're kind of finding their groove. And Tatis is doing fine. I think Machado and Bogarts, though, are actually starting off slow. So you don't want to see them find their groove against the Dodgers.
Yeah, let's try to keep Machado under wraps, if possible for the next few days. That'd be great.
Yeah, no. But Yamamoto being on the bump tomorrow, first start obviously was a little shaky, but that last one he absolutely dealt. So I think he's got like 15 Ks and 11 innings pitched. The command is starting to be there.
Yeah.
And I think he's starting to find that, they talked about it during spring training. There's going to have to be adjustments to the way he was kind of delivering and the way that he was, as Greg was mentioning during the spring training, tipping the pitches. So how excited are you for Yamamoto tomorrow against this Padres offense?
I'm very curious to watch him. One of the things, even with that, the better starts he was having, still occasionally will go deep into counts, throwing a lot of pitches. So if we could see a little more efficiency from him, I think that would be great. But I think this is all the pitching staff sort of coming into shape, sort of rounding into shape a little bit, and trying to get comfortable. So very curious to see kind of, what he offers against the Padres, how he's able to go. The strikeout numbers are fantastic. You love that. I just want to see a little more command, a little more efficiency, maybe using fewer pitches to get outs, if he can do that to get through this lineup.
Yeah. Well, Marcus, I think we'll preview the game even more tomorrow. It's a 7 p.m. game tomorrow in LA. So if anyone's going out, enjoy it. But we'll be back tomorrow morning to talk more about the Padres game and just more about if any of the Ohtani news and Ippei news kind of develops a little more. We'll react to that. Marcus, I'll hand the floor to the floor is yours. I'll kind of let you send us off if there's anything you want to get into before we head out. But again, thank you for being here. And while Corporate Greg wasn't here, I think we handled it pretty well.
Yeah, I think we did a good show today. So maybe the Mao should look out that we can just kind of handle this ship while he's not there.
Come on now.
All right, but thanks everybody for hanging out and watching, and thanks to everybody for jumping in the chat and participating. We love having all of your comments and your questions in there. And I guess shout out to LAX for making the travel experience better. So that'll do it, though, for this edition of the Blue Review. He is Parker Bell. I am Marcus Grant. Enjoy the off day. We'll be back at it again tomorrow with you. Same bat time, same bat channel. We'll see you then, everybody.